They thought Pam Bondi's golden retriever was just there for comfort until he stood in court, walked to the witness stand, and triggered a confession. Murphy didn't bark or growl. When Bondi tapped her heel twice, he rose calmly, leash slipping off, and crossed the room to sit before Malcolm Barrens. The courtroom froze. Barrens stiffened, throat bobbing. "I need a minute," he muttered. Judge Watkins frowned. "You're under oath." Barrens blurted, "I was pushed to change the timeline. It wasn't my idea." Gasps erupted. The prosecutor gaped. Pam stayed still. Murphy returned to her side. The trial shattered in an instant. 2 days earlier, Pam entered the courthouse, Murphy beside her. Officer Tran greeted them. "Best behaved dog we've had." Pam's smile didn't reach her eyes. Murphy stayed focused as if listening to something unseen. Her client, Dominic Renselli, awaited trial for fraud, accused of manipulating $12 million in assets. "Did you sleep?" Pam asked. "Does 3 hours count?" Dominic whispered. He feared taking the fall alone. The prosecution's case hinged on Malcolm Barrens, whose story was to clean. Pam had dug up inconsistencies, flight logs, missing invoices. Murphy reacted subtly during Barrens' depositions, ears perking at certain lies. Pam adopted Murphy after a brutal case left her drained. He wasn't trained to detect lies but noticed patterns. Once, he growled during a colleague's story about witness tampering. Weeks later, that colleague was investigated. Another time, he caught a deponent lying about an invoice. Coincidences? Maybe, but Pam trusted his instincts. Barrens sat in the witness lounge, gripping lukewarm coffee. He'd shaped his testimony to protect himself, omitting emails and meetings where Dominic had objected. Bondi's quiet scrutiny unnerved him, especially her dog, who watched him like a statue. "They're ready for you," the bailiff said. Barrens stood, his steps heavy. In court, Pam's questions were polite until she confronted Barrens. With a travel log disproving his alibi, he faltered, "I may have mixed up dates." She let the silence linger. Murphy stirred. Barrens glanced at the dog, then cracked, "I lied. They told me to focus on Q2 and Q3. The prosecutor shot up. The judge called recess. The hallway erupted. Reporters scrambled. In chambers, the prosecutor accused Pam of theatrics. That dog manipulated the jury." Pam shrugged. He walked. The witness cracked. The judge sighed. Outside, Dominic trembled. "Am I free?" Pam said, "They'll hear the truth now." Murphy trotted past the clamoring press, ignoring their shouts. 3 weeks later, the case unraveled. New whistleblowers emerged. Dominic avoided prison. Pam returned to work, but whispers followed her. A handwritten note arrived. "I was in the gallery. I'm ready to talk. I trust the dog." Pam tucked it away, rubbing Murphy's ears. "You've got fans?" The world wanted to believe Murphy was magical lie-detecting genius, but Pam knew truth often needed stillness, not fireworks. Murphy just listened. Maybe that was enough. Patience, attention, and the courage to confront what others ignored. The lesson: listen closely. Someone might be ready to speak. The media frenzy faded, but Pam kept the note in her desk. It wasn't signed, but the shaky handwriting told her enough someone else was trapped in a lie. Murphy dozed at her feet, tail twitching. She wondered how many people walked through life waiting for one moment of courage, one silent nudge toward the truth. Dominic's daughters sent Murphy a hand-drawn thank you card. One had sketched him with a superhero cape. Pam pinned it beside the photo on her desk. It wasn't about winning. It was about balance. The law tilted toward power, but sometimes, just sometimes, the weight of a quiet truth could tip it back. A month later, the anonymous letter writer appeared. Claude Porter, a former Cora Trust analyst. Over coffee, he confessed he doctored reports under pressure. "I saw Barrens break. I knew I had to come forward." Pam listened. Murphy sat at Claude's feet, unmoving. No growls, no tension, just witness. The prosecutor, chastened by the fallout, reopened the case. Subpoenas flew. Pam watched from the sidelines this time, but her phone buzzed with calls from other attorneys. "How do you do it?" they asked. She'd say, "I didn't." The truth was always there. Murphy would yawn as if bored by the repetition. Judge Watkins retired that spring. At his farewell dinner, he pulled Pam aside. "That dog of yours." He shook his head. "Never seen anything like it." She smiled. "Neither have I." Later, Murphy nosed the judge's hand, earning a rare scratch behind the ears. Some bonds needed no explanation. Pam's office became a magnet for the desperate clients who'd been dismissed. Whistleblowers with nowhere else to go. She turned down the high-profile cases, focusing on the ones where the truth was buried but not gone. Murphy greeted them all the same: stillness, a tilt of the head, infinite patience. One evening, Pam found Murphy staring at the backyard fence, ears pricked. A stray cat? A raccoon? Then she saw a folded note wedged between the boards. "Saw you on the news. My boss is stealing from veterans. I have proof. Can we talk?" She pocketed it. The work never ended. Years later, a law student asked Pam about the courtroom dog legend. She laughed. Murphy wasn't a lie detector. He just paid attention. The student frowned, disappointed. But truth wasn't magic. It was showing up, listening, and sometimes walking across a room when it mattered most. Murphy passed at 14, his muzzle gray, his gait slower but his eyes still sharp. Pam buried him under the oak where they'd watched the river every morning. No plaque, no fanfare, just a quiet spot for a quiet lie. That night, she dreamed he brought her a leash, tail wagging, ready for the next case. The world moved on. Pam kept practicing. New clients, new battles. But sometimes, in the hush of a courtroom or the pause before a confession, she'd feel the ghost of a presence at her feet, the weight of a truth waiting to be heard, and she'd listen.